Greetings. Here we have a Commodore Vic 20. This was announced in 1980, and its claim to fame is that it's the first PC that sold over 1 million units. This was on sale from 1980 through 1985, when it was discontinued in favor of its brother, the Commodore C64. But I guess a lot of people bought this. Wasn't very powerful, and it was mostly a cartridge-based game because it came with 5K of RAM, of which 3.5K became available for basic programs. So if we start it up, it gives us about 3.5K of free memory. And so if you wanted to play anything or do anything of use on this, you had to increase the memory, and they sold an 8K memory cartridge for it. But what they mostly did was they did a lot of games for this, and they released the games on cartridges. So you got a 16K cartridge. For instance, a lot of Scott Adams adventures, text adventures, were ported to this, and they could obviously not fit into the 5K of memory that it had. So they made a cartridge, and that's how you got games on it. But I figured, let's try to make this a little bit more useful and see if we can give it some more memory. There is, of course, the aforementioned 8K cartridge, RAM cartridge you can buy for it, but it uses up the cartridge slot, so you can write basic programs and save them to tape or to disk. Could also hook up a disk drive to this, but you couldn't. Well, what if you had a cartridge that required more RAM? There were some out there, so there had to be another way. You had to update this in another way that left the cartridge port free. So I did some research, and here's what I found. I did some research. There are a bunch of DIY projects out there, but the one I finally decided to get was what you're looking at. This was designed by Giovanni Joby, and I'll link to it below. And it's actually an open source project on PCBWay. But I didn't really want to go there and buy 5 boards and pay $20+ to have it shipped to me. So I checked eBay, and there was another enterprising seller that I guess ordered the boards and put together this kit, which is the PCB itself, a bunch of sockets, and these round pin plugs, so you can install that inside the Vic. Now this is not all, of course. You do need some components to make this kit complete. This does add 32K of RAM to your Vic 20. You need to come up with a memory chip. These are generically 6264s, and they sell anywhere from $3, which are board pulls, all the way to over $10. I had some in my stock here, and these are, I don't know, weird house numbered, but I ran them through the tester and they tested good. Then what you also need is you're going to have to pull the 16K basic ROM out of the Vic 20. And there's 2 ways, because that's what this plugs into, to get most of the signals. But the recommendation is to burn that EEPROM or the ROM, the original ROM, into a 2764 EEPROM and socket it and put that on the board too. There are plans and instructions on how to reuse the existing ROM, because on some machines it's soldered in, so you have to remove it and put in a socket in the machine. But the recommendation is to use this because the original ROM is probably pretty old and it's set to be prone to failure. So all we really got to do, solder all this together, plug in the chips, and then we have to connect 5 wires which go to the chips, to the RAM select lines, which are conveniently already in the Commodore. And once we do that, we should have a machine with a total of 37K, 32K for this upgrade and 5K standard installed already. Alright, I soldered everything in, well, all of the sockets, but I took the liberty of making a small mod at this point, and that can be seen underneath. I added bypass capacitors to all of the 4 RAM sockets. It is a good design rule to do so, and because, you know, it'll make things run smoother. I'm kind of surprised that there's no provision made for these on the board, but it'll run without them, but this will give it an extra sense of stability. And if we look at the Vic motherboard, we can see that they followed the same design philosophy as far as bypass is concerned. Basically, well, mostly there's a chip, there's a bypass capacitor per chip. As we can see, these are all 0.1 microfarads. Everything, including the CPU, has one over here. And again, it's not a big deal, but I think it'll give it a little better stability. And of course, we have the round pin connector, and that will fit into here. And then we have to probably prop it up a little bit on the far left side because it's just dangling in the wind. And most importantly, we have to add 5 wires to provide the select lines for the RAMs. And here's the board installed. We had to run some wires back here to the cartridge connector, 5 wires to be exact. And as I mentioned earlier, those are the chip select ones. We have the basic ROM in a 2764 and 3 6264s, which increased the memory by 32K. And since it has 5 built in, this now has 37K. However, basic, for some reason, can only see the first let's see, the first 3 chips, which is 24K plus 5, about 29K, and you would have to write some assembly language in order to access the rest of the memory. But now we can plug in a cartridge and, you know, without having the full memory, because the cartridge slot is still free. Unfortunately, I don't have a cartridge to plug it in, but at least let's put it back together and see how much of the memory BASIC sees. Okay, let's see how successful we were. One thing is, it takes about 2 or 3 seconds for a VIC-20 to boot up with just a 5K in there. So this is going to take a bit longer because I don't know what the exact algorithm is, but it figures out how much memory it has, probably by sequentially writing values to the memory space. And when it fails, then it knows it reached the end of physical memory. So 3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom. It is showing us 28,159 bytes free, which is exactly what the instructions say, because, as mentioned, the BASIC ignores the last 8K RAM in there, and you can only use it by writing your own assembly language. But one test to see if this is lying or not is we can write a very short program that basically prints out the memory size. Now that, how'd that go? Oh, it's the free with a dummy argument. So we have 28,159, but since we just added a line of BASIC, it'll tokenize that and use up a few bytes of memory. So now if we run this, the number should be less than 28. The number of free memory should be less than 28,159. So if we go ahead and run it, 28,146. So it used up 13 bytes to store the single line BASIC program we entered. And there it is. So again, sorry, I don't have a cartridge to try out with it, but it looks like it's working. I guess I could try to hook up a disk drive to it and see if it loads from there and all that good stuff. But this one's supposed to be short and sweet. It's a nice memory expansion. You can either order a bunch of boards or see if there's still somebody on eBay that'll sell you a single board with some sockets. But it's definitely worth the upgrade. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and hit the right icons. And we'll see you next time.